Welcome back to Time by the Tent podcast. Happy you've downloaded the program or viewing it on our YouTube channel. Holly, let's go to the hotline and bring in our guest for this week.
Jase is the founder and creator of Jase Outdoors YouTube channel, where you'll find turkey hunting, archery hunting, deer hunting. Jase is an outdoor producer, photographer, videographer, and he also does product reviews on the channel. Welcome to the program, Jase.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for taking time out of your day and not only educating Holly and myself, but all of our listeners. And I'll start with this question here. Let's talk about product reviews, game cams or trail cams. They've come a long way in the last 5, even 10 years. And they're a lot more than just strapping it on a tree, walking away, and coming back in a couple of weeks. You got cell cams. You can do the whole thing with security. You've done a number of reviews on your channel. What is one of the top ones that you would recommend, and one that you would say, not knocking the company, but right now it's just not what it needs to be and we should shy away from it?
Yeah, you definitely got that right. They've come a long way. And boy, I don't want to put an age on myself, but boy, I remember back in the day when you'd have to used to string up a line across the deer trail, and a deer would kind of walk across that and trigger the time. So essentially you'd go and check that clock, and you'd have no idea even what tripped it. So the fact that now they're sent straight to your phone in real time is really, it is quite amazing to see how far it has come. But yeah, so some of the best trail cameras that I have tested, and I have done a lot of off-brand, a lot of name brands. I personally like Tacticam, and I just think that they have the best quality photos. The videos are awesome, nighttime. Everything's good about them. The PIR sensor, the price range, because typically, your best cameras are going to be higher prices. Right. So they're kind of in the mid-range of all that.
Because there's some cameras out there that's close to $500 a camera.
That's what I was just going to say. Spartan was probably the best camera that I've ever used, and it's like $500 for the camera. Yeah. And honestly, I would rather have, 3 or 4 cameras out to the price of that one, just because I'd rather have, more eyes in the woods. But those, they certainly are amazing, but they can be expensive. So I really like the Tacticams. I just think all around their customer service is great. And I feel like that's very important when it comes to, any company. Right. If you have an issue or you have questions, and if they don't ever get back to you, it really makes it hard to want to buy their product again. So they have been good. I like them. I have reviewed a lot of off-brand, like overseas knockoff trail cameras that you'll find pretty cheap on Amazon. So some of them can be pretty good as far as functionality goes, but I'd almost say you got to be careful with those, just because.
Hello?
And a lot of times those companies just kind of pop up and then disappear. Yeah. So you might have a cellular camera that's kind of a knockoff, and they're not around the following year. So yeah, you can get it at a cheap price, and you can run them for, maybe a year or so, and that might be the end of it.
Well, in Tacticam, they're based, I think, in Minnesota, aren't they? They're an American company.
Yes, they are. They are American, and I think you're correct on that. I'm not sure exactly where they're based out of. But
let's talk about Tacticam for a moment. With these cell cameras, do you have, or have you found that your cell phone doesn't have that great of a signal, but you put one of these up with the antenna, and boy, you've got the signal that you need because of the extended antenna, or is it kind of a mixed bag?
I usually use my cell phone as just kind of a gauge. If I have one bar on my cell phone, I'm probably going to have more reception with the cellular trail camera because of that reason. It has a big antenna. It's kind of a, big device. So typically wherever I have any kind of reception with my cell phone, I will have it with my, cellular trail camera.
Good to know, because sometimes you're like, oh, this is iffy on the phone, but I don't want to invest this money, and then it doesn't work, and I got to send it back.
And now some of the companies that are putting out these trail cameras have, like dual antennas where it'll use, Verizon and AT&T. So it won't matter what service is in the area, which is really nice, because sometimes you got to know what towers are in your region for your cameras to work. Now they're kind of making them, run off of different companies. So it just keeps getting better.
Right. And for our listeners, just to be clarify, it doesn't matter what cell company you have on your cellular device. This is through the company of the trail camera, and you buy a service or so many megabytes or photos through them. It doesn't matter what network you're using.
Correct. This has nothing to do with your cell phone whatsoever. It uses the same towers, it's basically the same internet towers. So, there's like the data service that can be a lot less than even what your cell reception can be in some areas. And of course, as hunters, we're sticking our stuff out in remote areas where it seems like I never have cell phone reception. So, but they're getting better when it comes to service as well, like reception.
Fantastic. So a fun activity in late winter and early spring is shed hunting for whitetail deer antlers. Is there a trick to finding them, or any helpful tips maybe where you can find them? Or how?
Yeah. It's a good way to get out, kind of that late winter, early spring, just to, you're stuck inside all winter just to get out and go look. But, really it comes down to having to pay attention to where your most deer activity is, especially like bedding areas. If you have a hard, snowy winter, they're going to be bedded up a lot, and then from there they're going to food sources. So if you can sort of identify those two areas, or one of those two areas, that's where the deer are going to be hanging out. That's where you're going to find sheds. It's just getting out there and getting boots on the ground and doing a lot of walking, looking for them. If you can help it, if there's hard snow, like late, say it's late February, early March, a lot of times it hasn't snowed for a while, and the snow kind of packed down and hard and antlers are falling off. They just sit on top of the snow and they're really easy to find. But also, believe it or not, it's going out on a cloudy day. Just minimizes shadows. That actually makes them so much easier to find, because they're almost kind of more of a whitish color, and they just seem to glow a little bit more when it's kind of a dark, dreary day.
And whenever I know coyotes and foxes and wolves will carry these around, but when you find sheds or a shed, how can that help you determine the health of the herd and knowing what's around?
Yeah, I'm not an expert on this part. I know they do a lot of studies on this, but I do know that when you pick up a shed, if you look at the bottom of the antler, like the base of it, just under the burr of the antler, there's a pedicule underneath there. It's like a white bone that kind of, it's just the very base of where it attaches to its head.
All right.
Apparently, so that if that's concaved, they have found that means that deer was stressed at the time that antler fell off. And typically, being the time of year they fall off, it's probably because of nutrition. And if it's not concave, if it kind of like sticks down, like protrudes out a little bit, then that means, it's a very healthy deer. Testosterone levels have stuff to do with that as well. Again, I know there's a lot of studies on this, and I haven't been a part of any of those, but for me, the one thing that it tells me when I hold that antler, especially if it's one I recognize from a trail camera, I do a lot of remote monitoring that way, and it tells me that deer survived rifle season, it survived the winter, and more than likely, he's going to be around for the upcoming archery season.
Right.
So it's always kind of like, gives me a deer to look for the next season. So I know he's around. And that to me is the most exciting part of shed hunting.
Yeah.
Typically it's like when I see a shed, it's like, oh, who's this? Like I pick it up. It's like, oh, I don't know this one, like, so it's just fun to find them and see if you can find them next year. Cause relatively they're going to look the same, probably just bigger.
Right. So
especially if you have a target buck that, you've been after, or maybe you've been hunting and you find his sheds, and it's like, wow, he made it. So, for here, like Pennsylvania, the next hurdle for them is not getting hit by a car.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So outside of that, more than likely that deer will still be around.
Well, you're a videographer, you video deer and turkey, and you participate in those activities. What have you seen to be some of the biggest mistakes turkey and deer hunters make that mess up their hunts?
Oh, yeah. I think the biggest hunting mistakes actually take place before ever stepping into the woods. If you're chasing turkeys or deer, and it's simply just not practicing enough. Not practicing enough target shooting, blowing on your turkey calls, whatever is needed to, make that hunt happen, I think is the biggest mistake, because that's going to mess up your hunt quicker than anything else, is just really not being prepared with your equipment. Deer hunting, I would say the number one thing is, and you can tell quickly just by engaging in a conversation with people, that oftentimes guys overlook the wind, like playing the wind, how you're going to use the wind in your favor to access your stand. Just wind direction in general from where your stand is. You don't want to be blowing your wind right into a bedding area. So a lot of times I think the wind is overlooked, and that messes up your hunt pretty quick when it comes to deer. Luckily for turkeys, it doesn't matter, because
turkeys, it's the movement is what gets you on the movement.
That was kind of my next thing, is just woodsmanship, just knowing when to move. Is really key. When to be quiet, I've hunted with guys that just don't really understand what it means to whisper.
Yeah.
Like something that you think is pretty
hey,
obvious.
did you see that? Yeah.
Yeah. The part that kills me is I'll whisper to them, yeah, hey, we should be quiet right now, and they don't whisper, like they just talk normal back, and it's like, you kind of have to like put your finger up, like, shh,
right.
Like
you're like,
so just
you're like, follow the context clues, and we'll be good.
It kind of goes back to just practicing, just getting prepared.
Or take 20 minutes and watch a hunting video of one of these top hunters and understand how they operate and try to mimic that if you're really not sure what you're doing.
Oh yeah, today, you're blessed with the internet, and there's just more information than you'd ever be able to learn on there. And so there's enough out there to definitely get a sense of, what to do and what not to do.
And whenever you experience that, you instantly know that this person, it's either they are dead serious about what they're doing, or they really just doing it because they think they know what they're doing.
Exactly. Yeah, you can tell pretty quick just in conversation. A lot of the guys that I film, or the, TV show professionals, I guess you'd call them. But so they certainly know what they're doing. But for myself and stuff I do, I take a lot of new hunters, so I get to see like both ends of it. It's pretty fun to experience both sides of it.
Well, and you being the videographer, you're just as excited to get that captured of that kill as that person is trying to. And if that person doesn't know what they're doing, it's frustrating you more than what it is them because they don't know what they're doing wrong.
Yeah, it's hard. I try to film most of my stuff, and especially when it is a new hunter, it's hard to run the camera and keep an eye on what they're doing as well. So that is certainly challenging. But that's one thing nice about when I am filming for TV. I know that when I climb a tree or I get set at a tree, like I just have to focus on my camera. That's all I have to worry about. They know what they're doing. I don't have to hold their hand.
Right.
Fantastic. So what would you advise to a landowner dealing with trespassers coming on their land and how they can address that safely and just safely?
Boy, trespassers. Yeah. I think I have a few videos of those up on my channel, but tough situation. I would say, first and foremost is really to make sure that you have all your property lines fully posted. That just really avoid someone saying, "Oh, I didn't know I was supposed to be here. I didn't know where the boundary line was." And now, like, I know here where I'm in, I'm living in Pennsylvania, and recently they adopted that purple paint law. I'm not sure if you guys have that or heard of it.
I'm familiar with it. I've heard about it.
Yes. So now you put purple paint on the trees, and that basically means it's posted, no trespassing.
Universal rule.
Right, which is really, really nice. I'm glad that they finally did that, and because it avoids them ripping the posted signs off the trees and saying, "Well, I didn't see any posters." Yeah. So, I think that's the first thing is really just to make sure you have that clear that, look, we can't have you on here. To do it safely, really, is just if you know who it is, if you have pictures of them, if you see them, it's really just to call the police. Have them come out and handle it, especially if they're actually, actively hunting. They're carrying some sort of weapon. You never know what their temperament is, and that could be dangerous.
Don't try to be the cop yourself.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'd say call the police first if it's, trespassing, because I know here in PA, like the wardens won't come out for just trespassing. They have to be committing a game violation also for them to come out. So I'd say call the police, let them handle it. If you can see that they're committing some sort of game violation too, you get the wardens out there, and they'll take care of both ends. But typically, the police, even if they have game violation, the police will still call a warden in to get them for whatever they're doing wrong. But yeah, that's never a fun one.
No,
because I often think around here it seems like posted signs are like invitations. It seems like they just no regard for them whatsoever. Like I feel like some of the spots I have, you can't post them enough, and they just go right past them.
Yeah, it's you check your own state for the correct steps to take, but try to be smart about what moves you make if they are on your property and you're there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so I'm sure all states are different on the laws as far as like how it needs to be posted and whatnot. I think that's even changed over the years. They used to have like, the posted would have to be so far apart from each other for it to be official. Yeah. I think a lot of that is changed, but it's you got to kind of know the rules on that end as well.
Well, Holly is looking at hunting whitetail deer for the first time in a blind this fall.
Awesome.
What advice can you offer her as a new hunter to try to limit some of the mistakes that she might make that she doesn't know she's making?
Well, that's good to hear. Your first time.
Yeah, my first time.
I grew up hunting, and then we've purchased some land, and she's like, I want to hunt. And I said, okay, I
said, I think I want to hunt.
Well, that's better than most spouses would be like, you go, and we've talked to people in that realm. That's your toy. You go, I want nothing to do with it. Well, Holly wants to have something to do with it, so that's good for both of us.
That's great. As long as you think you want to hunt, that's great. So I guess, again, first and foremost, I guess kind of goes back to earlier is being prepared, because if you're not sure, ultimately in the end, if you want to hunt, if you're not prepared with like the right clothing, the right equipment, you're not going to have fun, and you probably won't want to do it again. So right off the bat, I'd just make sure you're well equipped. And then, with that is being familiar with all the equipment that you have. So you said you're going with a crossbow. I would, make sure you shoot that a lot. And I'd even set up your ground blind and shoot out of your ground blind, because you'll be surprised at some of the things that happen or that you find that you would have never thought of. Maybe your chair sits too low and you can't shoot up over the window, or maybe the mesh needs to be at a certain spot on those windows. So ground blinds are great. They can create another little bit of a challenge in that end. So I'd set everything up and just pretend you're hunting. If you're wearing gloves, put your gloves on, just so you know what it feels like. Your chair, again, going back to the chair, it's, make sure you could have a squeaky chair and you wouldn't know it until you're like sitting in dead quiet, and like you go to move and it creaks. And something you probably wouldn't have thought of when you're just out, practicing. You wouldn't have heard it. But
and it's a squeak so quiet, but everybody in the next 2 miles hears it. One of those things. Yeah.
Yeah, the deer will certainly hear it. So yeah, I mean, it's great to hear that we have some more interest in hunting, because it feels like we're losing more than we're gaining. So
yeah,
we're glad to have you. But that would be my biggest advice, is really just, make sure you're well equipped. Depending on how long you're going to be, make sure you have enough food. Because if you don't have fun, you probably won't want to do it again.
Right. Yeah.
Having like I said, the right clothing, right boots. If you have wet feet, you're not going to want to sit there. So it's just having the equipment to enjoy the day, and knowing how to use all that equipment.
Yeah,
that's awesome. I really hope you have success and have fun with it, and hope I keep at it.
Yeah, that's a good point though, thinking about the chair, and also, the layers and the clothing, because I'm usually a warm person, but when you're sitting outside, you get cold quicker than obviously you're sitting in a temperature controlled somewhere. And if I'm thinking about how cold I am or hungry or this chair is uncomfortable, I'm probably not going to have a good time. So I'm glad you mentioned
Correct.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. It all comes, better equipment always comes with a price. So it's just really getting, what's efficient and what will work. So that's always something to, take into consideration.
El Cheapo you bought on sale is probably not the quality or that you're looking for a successful, enjoyable afternoon in the stand.
Correct. Yeah. So it depends on the type of hunt. If you're hunting all day, you definitely want to bring food. That's probably my number one fault. Is I don't ever bring enough food, and the problem is too, when if it's a rut hunt and I climb a tree and I'm like, yeah, I'm going to sit here all day from sun up to sundown, and I have a bag of 2 sandwiches, I have pretzels or whatever I have. Well, come 10 o'clock, I start thinking about it. It's like, yeah, you know what? I'm kind of hungry. I'm just I'm just going to eat this sandwich here real fast. And then I'll eat myself out of the tree well before lunchtime ever rolls around. And then I'm like, I can't make it the whole day. So that's my biggest problem is I eat myself out of the tree. But yeah, going back to some of the other stuff is, I could say I almost speak from experience. I have a son. He started hunting when he was 7, and I never hunted out of ground blinds prior to then, really. So for kids, it was, to get him in there and it's just safer and it's just easy, conceals movement. They couldn't, it's hard to keep them to hold still. So a lot of those things that I learned about the chair squeaking and the windows not being tall enough, that's all happened to me. So that's why I actually had a buddy of mine, we were turkey hunting, and he was using a compound bow. So you wouldn't have this issue with a crossbow, maybe slightly, is when we had a turkey come in and he drew back on it, and your sight window, your sights are up higher than what your arrow sits.
Right.
So he had a full view of this turkey in his pins, but his arrow didn't clear the ground blind window.
Oh.
Because it sits probably 4 to 5 inches lower than what your sight is. And he ended up shooting right through the ground blind. And yeah, he missed it. Oh. So that's why I say, even just go as far as to practicing as if you were hunting, even wearing the clothes that you're going to wear. Just because of, a mask, if you have a mask on, you might find that part of it gets in the way if you don't have it set right. So like I said, it just kind of goes back to the whole preparation. It's just being prepared.
So with that being said, when you are filming hunts, is there one animal that you would like to film that you have not been able to get filmed?
Yes. This one's an easy one for me. Elk.
Okay.
Just hands down elk. I want to hunt one. I want to film one. I haven't ever been able to do either one. So I absolutely love turkey hunting. I love the chess match and the calling game and stuff. And I just feel like elk hunting is kind of just like turkey hunting, but almost 1,000-pound animal. So I just feel like that would be super exciting. Just hearing them scream and bugle. We do have an elk herd here in Pennsylvania. It's probably about 3 hours west of where I live. So it's not like I just get to go see them. I have to go out of my way, but I've been out there, I photographed them, and so I've been around them and hear them and stuff, and it's just I just think the coolest animals. I would love to be able to pursue one of them someday.
Yeah, 1,000-pound animal. You're just not going to throw that on the back of the ATV and take it into camp and hang it up and butcher it, right? There's a whole different procedure there, and you're probably on the side of a mountain in some instances. That's a beautiful animal, but a whole different world of preparation and post-hunt.
It's so different, in fact, that I do a lot of do-it-yourself hunts, public land hunts in other states. And that's the very reason I haven't done that for elk, because it's just a whole new ball game. And typically you got to go deep for them. And you're just not throwing that over your shoulder and walking out with it. Yeah. So that's the very reason I haven't done a public land elk hunt yet.
Well, capturing a hunt on camera to relive it, to show your friends, exciting. But what do you have? If you don't have a second person, how is the best way for one to capture a hunt on their own, and as much as focus on the camera as killing the animal that you're hunting?
Yeah, so I film a lot of myself. I typically don't have a camera guy. Maybe when my son gets a little older, he can run the camera. But yeah, I'm typically filming myself, and I think they're two different mindsets. Like, it really is. When you're the hunter, you have to focus on, drawing your bow or aiming your rifle, and watching what that deer is going to do. There comes a point in the hunt where you have to kind of forget about the camera. Mm-hmm. Or you have to be willing to blow your hunt. I've had the camera screw up several hunts of mine already. So typically what I say to people is you gotta have to go into the woods and ask yourself, what's more important, the video or the hunt? for me, I try to film everything. I try to do the YouTube channel, and I want to share my hunts. So going into it, the video is more important. Until it's the biggest buck of my life.
Right.
then I'm forgetting about the camera, because you have a great chance that you're going to mess up your hunt, because you're going to have to you got to hold the camera or move the camera, pan the camera, zoom it, focus, whatever, and then reach back to your gun or your bow, and that can easily mess up your hunt. And I had a chance, I'd say, at a dream buck in Wyoming. I really just want a velvet buck. I haven't been able to get one. And I had one come in, big velvet buck. He's, broadside. And I drew back and I looked down at the camera. So there's my first mistake, and realized he just kind of stepped out of the frame. So I'm at full draw, and now I'm trying to bump the camera with my elbow,
right,
to to move it over. Right. So I look back at the deer, and he's coming right at me now. And he's just standing straight on. I didn't want to take that shot. And he beds down.
Oh.
Right in front of me, and he's facing me. And I'm like, I'm at full draw. And at this point, I don't know what to do, because I'm like, if I let down, he spooks. If I shoot him, it's just, the shot opportunity is so slim. I don't want to wound this animal.
Right. Ethically, you didn't feel comfortable taking that shot.
Right. I didn't. It was all shoulder. He's just laying down. He's hunched up. It's just all shoulder in his head. And I'm just like, I didn't know what to do. I got to the point, I held back so long that I'm like, well, now I can't shoot because I'm shaking too bad. I can't even hold this. So with all my might, I tried to let my bow down. And, those cams roll over.
Mm-hmm.
Your string goes down fast. Well, as soon as I did that, he looked back and groomed himself. And I got away with it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe this. This is meant to be. So I start messing with the camera again. Well, long story short, I figured I'd just, I'll get him when he stands back up. Well, he was with a couple other deer, and they saw something they didn't like up on the hill. I don't know if it was a coyote or what, and they kind of spooked out of there. And again, he got up and went to go, and I tried turning the camera, and I drew, and I ended up missing him. And if I just would have if I wouldn't have looked down at the camera the first time when he was broadside, it was perfect. So no doubt, hands down, the camera ruined that hunt.
Back in the day, we didn't have cameras. We killed it, and then we took a photograph and hung it on the wall. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, now, they have Taxcam makes that one that you can mount to your bow and to your rifle scope, which I think is super cool. GoPros are very mountable. They're not necessarily give a good viewing experience as far as your hunt goes, because they're real wide. You don't see a lot of stuff sometimes, but so it really just depends on how serious you are with it. But again, you kind of have to just be prepared to mess up your hunt. I have a video on my channel where I had to ditch the camera because I had messed up so many hunts. And like I said, it was the biggest buck of my life here in Pennsylvania. He was an absolute giant. And when I saw him and he made a move towards me, I abandoned the camera.
Mm-hmm.
I zoomed back really wide. So I ended up kind of getting him on the camera, but the footage is not good. It's just, there was a lot of emotion for me that was kind of kept people watching it, because I was unsure of the shot, and I was kind of I was freaking out. I admit it. It was a buck of a lifetime here in Pennsylvania. It was a 163-inch deer, and I was just like, I am not letting the camera ruin this hunt.
Well, and none of us know how truly we will react when we have something like that walk in front of us. That's the thing. That, I'm a man. I'll just, you look at the top, Bill Jordan and Michael Wald, all those people, they've killed hundreds of deers, I think, in numbers, and they still just get as excited as the first time they see a deer.
Yeah. I'm only man enough to admit that I'm I get pretty emotional. Some would say I was even crying, and maybe I was, and I'm only man enough to admit that I was. But I just put so much of my life into it that when it comes down to that moment, I get tore up.
Yeah.
Like I get, the internet's always great because the comments I get, that I'm just a baby, and just, there's all kinds of comments.
Well,
and this is like, you know what? I don't care, because the day I don't feel that way, the day I don't get that excited, is the day I'm not going to hunt anymore.
Right. And I've told Holly there's 10% of the population is certified jerks. It doesn't matter. There's 10% of them out there. Doesn't matter what you do.
Oh yeah. Oh, I just got a comment today on a video I posted in Iowa. I shot a nice buck on public land in Iowa. It's a 150-inch deer. Yeah, it's not a giant by Iowa standards, but it was on the 7th day, the last night of the hunt, public land, and it's a respectable deer. But this guy was like, "Oh, that's not what guys go to Iowa for." It's like, I just got that today.
And you want to say to him, "Show me all the bucks that you've killed, sir. Let's talk."
Well, his YouTube handle was called Deer King something. So I got that right away. Just like, he's better than everybody, I guess.
Well, yeah.
But it's just like, because again, there again, I hunted so hard, and I put so much time, and it's, it took 4 years to draw that tag.
Yeah.
And it's public land, so I'm doing everything the hard way, and it came down to the last night, and I was just beside myself. Like, I was so freaking excited.
And you're exhausted too.
Yeah. Matter of fact, I was so exhausted, I couldn't even climb a tree that night. I was so tired from trying to film and doing mile-in hikes. I was so exhausted. I'm like, I don't have the energy to climb a tree. I ended up sitting on the ground, and I killed him a half hour before dark. So I lost it. Like, I was so pumped. I mean, I probably get more excited than the average hunter. But again, to me, that's just, if I don't get that excited, then I'll start to worry.
Yeah. Well, Jase, we appreciate the time you've offered. You spoke about your YouTube channel. How can people find you on the World Wide Web and view your content?
Yeah, my website is jaseoutdoors.com. That's JASE outdoors. And then it's all the same for Instagram. It's at Jase Outdoors. YouTube, it's at Jase Outdoors. Facebook is a little different. It's Jase Hunter Outdoors. Facebook, I had a video I posted about a year ago of a turkey hunt on there. And I guess you could safe to say it went viral. I've reached over 70 million people with this turkey hunt. And going back to the comments, I bet you every single day I get some sort of hate mail from Asia, the Middle East. Like, it's going worldwide. It's pretty interesting, to say the least, of the people who have reached out to me on this video.
Well, Jase, we thank you so much for the time you've offered us and the education, and for not only us, Holly and myself, but all of our listeners. We thank you for that.
Yeah, I appreciate having me. I love the chat hunting. I hope I was insightful in one way or another, but
it certainly was.
But
well, that was an interesting and informative conversation with Jase from Jase Outdoors.
Yeah, he was really enthusiastic, and I feel like we got a lot of great information. I hope you all enjoyed and